Played deeper this time, Rosario!
Rosario's header, Gordon's touch, Rosario!
The first South Asian footballer in the Premier League. Sounds like quite an accolade. But Robert Rosario had to hide that part of his heritage during the heydays. The presence of people from places like present-day India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka in the UK dates back to the 17th century, and colonization played a major role.
In the 90s or the 80s, to be othered or to be different, to be South Asian, perhaps might work against you in the context of football.
Gets it onto his right, Jimmy Carter, into the corner!
It falls for Chopra!
When I was growing up, we all played football, but I think it wasn't as encouraged or pushed by our parents.
I feel like in South Asian kind of culture, even when I was like younger, my dad would kind of like make me watch cricket, like IPL or something like that.
South Asians boast a rich history in cricket and have become synonymous with it due to the popularity of the game in the region. But is that true for those who've made the UK their home?
There's a lot of stigma attached to the South Asian community about, not wanting to play the game.
They'll say to us, "Oh, Asians are cricket lovers." Not really. Me personally, I don't like cricket. I don't mind the odd 2020, but I'm not wanting to cricket.
And South Asian participation in football in the UK attests for it.
We were never stopped from not playing football. And be it football or any other sport, so we were always encouraged.
We're second, third, fourth generation of people here now in this country, and our lifestyle has changed. Our viewpoint has changed as parents. We are more open to allowing our kids to go into these training sessions.
The local mosque that we have here as well, they've recently obviously made a team as well, so there is definitely a pool that was starting to sort of gather up here of South Asian talent.
We almost demonise British South Asian parents, that players aren't coming through because of the parents, and that shifts the blame onto South Asian communities, that it's a culture that's wrong, when really we need to look at the system, and that's what's been a major barrier.
There's something that stems from the parents to say, why should I encourage him? Because obviously something's already embedded into their thought process that he's not going to get anywhere because of the colour of his skin.
Parents were worried, of course, and instead said concentrate on studies, or maybe don't play in those kind of dangerous environments. So you can absolutely understand that.
Aman and his brother are an example of the shift in trends.
Here we are, head coaches of the under-11s teams, and also involved as sort of assistant head coaches of the under-16s now. So we've got our hands in a couple of different teams, but playing football, being involved in football, watching football, that's something both me and my brother have always been passionate about.
Yes, 20, 30 years ago, some parents, not all, but some parents were less enthusiastic about their children playing football and taking it up as a career, and said, concentrate on education. You're seeing that less and less now.
At the grassroots level, South Asians are involved, but the myths still persist.
Sometimes they may feel, okay, that cultural thing will get in the way, or he has to go pray, he's not going to come and play at the same time. So these kind of stigmas are still there, and we still have to overcome that.
They love cricket, or we haven't got the physique for it, or we haven't got the mental and the physical strength to progress further. I think it's just a lame excuse for them to say, hold on, let's not pick these people.
They were your standard stereotypes you've had of South Asians playing football. They don't really like football, they play cricket.
If you look in the Premier League, you've got people like Mo Salah, Kante, they are practicing Muslims that do still compete at the high level.
Now, the problem I received was abuse, racial abuse from within your own teammates, your own managers, but a lot more from opposition.
I've interviewed 150 players, coaches, scouts over the last 15 years, and the general themes that are built up, that there are forms of institutionalized racism embedded in the game, in the recruitment system. Overt racism is still a major problem.
I think the numbers do speak for themselves, and I think there is an underlying issue there.
It's a shame to say we're in the 21st century that institutional racism in football still exists, unfortunately.
Within my research, I found there's some kind of evidence of institutionalized racism where some clubs have been discriminated against from playing in certain leagues due to arguably the fact that they are from a South Asian background.
Playing in these sort of environments where it was predominantly white teams, obviously locally and around Leicestershire, that were coming to play us. Obviously all the officials would have been predominantly white males, the teams, their managers, staff and everything. We'd hear a lot, obviously, usual comments on the sidelines that you used to get from obviously players, parents, stuff like that.
I know clubs and lads up and down the country that were racially abused, verbally and physically.
Racism still there, it still happens in the professional game. So you can imagine what it's like at the lower levels where it's not noticed or it's not in the spotlight as much.
The failure rate when we do take cases further is 90%.
While some might argue things have gotten better with regards to discrimination, it still exists within the structure.
Over the years, there's a lot of scouts that have said that quite explicitly and some quite implicitly to say, there's no South Asians in the leagues we follow, or there's no South Asians in the teams we follow, which is an underhand way of saying we've never gone out of our way to scout and recruit players in slightly different locations. We concentrate on this area and these players and these teams and these leagues because that's what we've always done.
We have had quite a few talented kids, but I mean, we've never had scouts come. They've either been chosen when they've played a game with another high level team or any other team, and they'll come to us and they'll say, well, you've got this kid. He needs to play for the elite club to be selected or train with Leicester City.
A lot of people don't really get that chance to get scouted into academies, especially ethnic minorities from, like you say, the South Asian background.
Are you telling me you get 100 kids, not one or two are not good enough to play?
We've got a boy in the under-16s that's South Asian. He's really, really talented, and he's more than deserving of having the opportunity or maybe even being on a trial. We had a scout come down, and he had a look at a few of the players, but wasn't too interested.
Over the last 6 years, we've had 8 kids who have moved over to these clubs. And I spoke to one of the parents about a month or two ago, and his son is now 18. And I said, oh, how well did your son? He left CFA just before COVID. He goes, no, just train. They released him at the age of 16.
They want someone that's going to be a star. And until they find that star, they're not willing to take that risk.
This is a story up and down the country. Whether you're looking in London, Midlands, Manchester, Yorkshire, Scotland, this story is the same. When you speak to a lot of these young lads or even older generation, they've been with professional clubs and they'll get released at 16, 17.
There's definitely a pool of talented Asian players. I don't want to brag about myself. I'd like to think I was within that pool as well. But again, it's down to developing that talent in the right way, giving them the right opportunities.
The cream of the crop rises to the top. But is that realistic without a level playing field?
There's also a colourblind way of looking at sport, which is, again, linking to that meritocracy, which is, doesn't matter what background you're from, what class you're from, whatever, it's all based on talent.
The academy boards are training twice a week, every week, at the best facilities with the best coaches for a period of time. So for the underrepresented communities to then demonstrate the same level, they have to have access to the same level of coaching, the same level of facilities, the same level of expertise.
In order to get through those stages, you've got to have those opportunities and access to those opportunities. And for some people, they don't necessarily have that. And it's much harder for them to even get the first step of the ladder than somebody whose, say, parent was a professional footballer.
I've seen it myself, like a player just get picked because their dad is close friends with one of the coaches or this, that or the other, and someone else misses out purely just based on that.
Despite the multiple social barriers, British South Asians and other minority communities have persevered. Lester Nirvana's birth in the early 1980s is an example of it.
The South Asian community and the black community didn't have structured sports available at the time.
There was a lot of, obviously, racism that people had to deal with that came into this country. So the club was formed to be a platform for those people to then progress.
But the lack of support even today demonstrates the challenges.
The ground tends to flood a lot here, so we have to sort of look and go elsewhere indoors and arrange split our whole club into 3-4 different sections.
I'll be honest with you, the 20 years I've been here, I've not seen any investment come down either from the professional club or from the Football Association.
Authorities have taken notice on some level, with the FA's Asian Inclusion Strategy and the Premier League South Asian Action Plan. And an example of it are the programs being held where clubs and scouts are being brought together.
It's a great opportunity for anybody that enjoys football, enjoys watching football, taking part in football, to be involved. Particularly if you've got young kids and players who can showcase their talents.
There's definitely been a step forward in terms of encouragement, in terms of engagement, in terms of collaboration with us. I definitely see that, obviously involved in CFA.
But arguably, more can be done.
I don't know whether there's consistency in what they're doing, or whether it's one-off festivals or events that they put on to try and bridge that gap sometimes.
Rather than just having a single point in a year to get all of that training sessions done and all of that festival done, it needs to be an ongoing thing throughout the whole year.
Another aspect stakeholders have been trying to look at is involving historically underrepresented groups in other footballing roles.
It's not just about players getting in there, it's a whole aspect of things where you've got to get your referees to go in there, you've got to get your coaches to be in the pro clubs.
As a South Asian coach, I had the opportunity to meet a diversity and inclusion development officer from the FA. He got in touch with me on LinkedIn. He'd recently come into the job as well, and this was a couple months ago actually. So he got in touch with me and wanted to meet up and sort of discuss my journey into coaching, how I found it, things I've done, things I've noticed, and obviously how he can help.
We do need more representation, whether that's coaching, managing, professional level, boardroom level, even at the Football Association.
We've enrolled into the Friends of the Academy initiative that Manchester United have as well. So that's something, again, I forgot to mention earlier, that clubs are and local associations are doing work.
And having more South Asians in the dugout has the potential to promote future representation.
I've seen it recently with the new boy that we brought in, who's just come along to the training sessions and is being involved in the team now. Obviously, he's of South Asian descent as well, similar to me and my brother, and straight away he's built that familiarity up with us.
Now more than ever, minority applicants are being interviewed for positions in football clubs. But can it have a substantial effect?
That's a positive step forward. It's affirmative action, but it can be easily bypassed and there's no sanctions if clubs don't follow it.
County football associations, they say we've got X, Y and Z in such a club, but then what's the next step after that?
If you look at Leicester alone, there's so many different South Asian clubs. If the FA were to bring us all together and kind of pick our brains in terms of, okay, what do you think should happen? They'll come up with a whole list of different things, because my vision might be different to what other clubs, South Asian clubs within the city will be.
We have been educating the authorities for the last, not just me personally, up and down the country. People have worked with clubs, they've worked with the football associations, but how do we go to the next level?
A lot of the fingers get pointed at the FA. However, it's about the linking with the clubs. There's 92 professional clubs within the football, within the system. It's about all of them 92 clubs being on the same page as the FA.
Wait a minute, get it how you live it. 10 toes in when we standing on business. I'm a big stepper, underground methods.
Leicester's on Hanumankind, South Asian heritage. Obviously, he's a professional player, Premier League.
The Pakistan team has come through now. You've got players like Otis Khan, Isa Suleiman coming through, and that's something that I've been following quite heavily.
Right now, I think there's like a 17-year-old player. He plays for Barnsley. His name's Vimal. He's from my country, so Sri Lanka. So I like kind of seeing the progress he's making.
From around 3 to 20, the number of South Asian men playing in England's top 4 leagues has seen an increase in the last 2 decades. But how long till we're more than just a footnote?
There is slightly a bit more representation. There is compared to 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but not enough. Not enough work is being done about it.
It's almost 40 odd years since we first created, and not to see the flurry of South Asian players in the professional game is still disheartening.